It's not often that I have tablets on the channel, but every once in a while, I have to remind myself that there are a lot of you out there that buy tablets to use for emulation and gaming and all that sort of thing, and so I check them out from time to time. Today, we are actually going to look at the Blackview Mega 3. It is this tablet right in front of me. We're going to see what features it has and if it's worth your money as a large tablet to use for gaming. Right off the bat, let's talk specs and features. The Mega 3 comes in two colors, Space Gray and Skyline Blue. It has a really nice and large 12.1 inch 2560 by 1600 90Hz IPS display. There's a Helio G100 processor inside, 12 gigabytes of RAM with 256 gigabytes of internal storage, dual SIM card slot, or it could be a SIM and a micro SD card slot, 8800 milliamp hour battery, and it's running a version of Android 15 called Doke OS, and it has a total weight of 555 grams. Now, price-wise, you can get this from their AliExpress store for $194 MSRP, but there are usually codes and discounts because it is AliExpress. I have seen it as low as $145, for example, or alternatively, there is an option where you can buy this from their website directly, although it is a lot more expensive at $298, but you do have a $20 code that you can use, and they provided me, and I'll leave that in the description. I think for most people, you are probably going to buy it from AliExpress if you do want it. Now, a few other things caught my eye feature-wise. This does have 1080p Widevine L1 support, which does mean Netflix and all of that fun stuff. But for performance, we're going to take a look at that, but the Helio G100 is essentially the same as the G99 for anybody familiar with the ZPG Z1 Unicorn or the Ayaneo Pocket Micro, and you kind of know what to expect here. So let's take a deep dive, and what was super interesting is in the unboxing. And of course you get the tablet, but you also get a screen protector included right out of the box, and it delivers with a case already on it. It's actually a really nice folio case, nothing special, but it is a nice addition that I just wasn't expecting. But they went a bit further than that, and they included a stylus pen, a wall charger, and a USB cable. So you are really just getting everything out of the box. You don't really need anything else. Now, obviously, this is an emulation and gaming channel. That is what we focus on. But before we get to that, I wanted to just quickly, because it's of interest to me and maybe some others, just see how manga and comics look, and they are absolutely gorgeous on this screen. And of course, it is massive, and there's a lot of room to work with. You could go landscape, you could go portrait, it doesn't matter. Everything looks really good on this screen. But obviously, media is going to be the star with this device. Netflix, Plex, manga, comics, all of that sort of thing. You have 12.1 inches of screen available to you, and it is 1600p. That is a lot of room to work with. This does mean, given the 16:10 aspect ratio, that you will have black bars on the top and bottom for most content, unfortunately. Now, there is a bunch of other AI improvements that Blackview has included in this Android build, and you can check their website for a full list of what that can do. It's going to be outside of the scope of what today will be about, and it's mostly about gaming and emulation and that sort of thing. So, with that being said, let's get into the fun stuff. And the very first thing that I wanted to do was test out if a telescopic controller with this big beast of a tablet would work. And unfortunately, none of the telescopic controllers that I personally have can stretch to meet this big beast horizontally. Vertically, it does work, but I wouldn't say it is sturdy enough for you to use. You could maybe 3D print something and make it work that way, but I just wouldn't use it that way either way. I think it's just a little bit too big. So instead, for the rest of the video, we're going to connect a Bluetooth controller. I'm using the GameSir Cyclone 2, and we're going to play games that way, since that's easier. Now, the first thing that I like to do with any bigger screen is test out 4:3 content, especially with a 16:10 aspect ratio, and I want to see how Super Nintendo looks, namely Super Mario World, since I love playing that on big screens. And it is always enjoyable to see Mario on a crisp screen and a big screen, and that looks great here. Now, PlayStation 1 is a lot more of the same, and it gives you an absolute ton to work with as far as in-screen real estate goes, and the Mega 3 has no issues playing any of these games, of course. Now, turning the tablet into portrait mode, I wanted to check out how Nintendo DS looks. And this is probably my favorite big screen Nintendo DS experience so far. It is just awesome. It looks nice, it fits nice, and you just have two massive screens for Nintendo DS. And I was using the stylus and just playing some Canvas Curse from Kirby, and it all works out really nicely. I'm going to be honest, this would be a very niche use case. I think you'd probably want to set this down or angle it somehow if you were going to use it this way, but you can use it this way if you wanted to. Let's fast forward to the top end here of what this can do, and it is going to top out at some GameCube and PlayStation 2 for the most part. Unless you consider indies on Switch as playable, which I guess it could maybe do some, but let's just say GameCube and PS2. So for those two systems, you are going to look at native resolutions for the most part. Now, the entire catalog of both is likely not going to be playable, and you will be fiddling around with settings to turn on VBI skip, to play with the emulated speed, all of that sort of thing. It isn't going to work right out of the box for most games. You will have to play around with settings to get them to work better, but native resolution for a lot of the games that you would want to play can work here. I think overall it is a decent experience for emulation. Now on the Android game front, and I was just trying out some Genshin Impact, and I just tried it out right out of the box, so it was still at 30 FPS. I'm pretty sure it was medium settings or whatever it is, and it plays just fine. There is some dips, there is some little FPS hiccups and all that sort of thing, but you could adjust settings here. You can get this to be perfectly playable. I'm not sure if that would change for if there's a lot more on screen, but it seemed to be just fine. Then I jumped into Call of Duty Mobile, and I guess I didn't have my controller set up properly because I couldn't get controls to work. So I was just playing around with the touchscreen controls, and it looks terrible, and it's super difficult because I was doing it on the desk. It runs fine, but you would want to use some sort of controller. I don't think you'd be able to hold this in your hands for a long period. I think on the Android games front, this is pretty decent. You probably will struggle with a lot of the heavier games, but it seems like a decent amount of games will be playable here. Lastly, I wanted to check performance for streaming, namely Artemis streaming from my actual PC. This tablet has Wi-Fi 5, so I'm not really expecting much here considering it's older on the Wi-Fi scale, and I was curious to see how it would do in comparison to a device that I usually use for streaming, which is my Odin 2 Portal. And it's not a great experience. Unfortunately, the decoding time is just way too high, and likely due to the processor. For reference, a Windows device usually sees sub 1 ms decoding. That's what I have on my devices. And for a typical Android device, like my Odin 2 Portal, it is about 3 to 5 milliseconds of latency. So having this at 30 is quite a bit higher. This thing is really cool for media consumption and all of that. And if you want to do some light gaming, then you can. And at $145, yeah, it's a really good price for what you're getting here. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on tablet gaming like this. I know there's a lot of you that do it, probably with the Y700 that I have right over there for my script, but do you go bigger than that? Do you go to 10 inches, 12 inches, that sort of thing? And do you lay it on a desk like this and play that way? I'm curious to know for next time, for any other devices that pop up, how many of you actually play like this? Just something I'm curious in. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about emulation. Support me on YouTube membership if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.